Scientists have read it. What are some scary scientific discoveries that most of the public is unaware of? Supergonorrhea is resistant to the vast majority of strong antibiotics, including fluoroquinolones and macrolides. N-gonorrhea is mutating all the time to resist antibiotic effects. There have been multiple reports of supergonorrhea in Australia, England, etc. Major solar coronal mass ejection apocalypse. The thinking goes that the big one, when it hits, about once every 500 years, if not sooner, would be powerful enough to knock out electrical and communication systems across Earth for days, months, or even years, nixing power grids, satellites, GPS, the internet, telephones, transportation systems, banking, you name it. Edit. Thanks for all the comments. I think the biggest factor here would be the fact that nobody would know what happened. In a fear-fed world, this would lead to rumors and civil unrest very quickly, people running to get guns, food, taking advantage of the chaos to commit crimes, etc. It would be a nasty scenario. Many people may be silent carriers for mad cow disease and won't know for another decade or so. Mad cow disease from the 1980s-1990s was due to cows being fed the remains of other animals. People then ate their beef and consumed prions, a protein that can destroy the human brain. It's thought that many people still might carry prions, but won't know until they start experiencing the symptoms of Kruetzfeldt-Jakob disease or bovine spongiform encephalopathy, which might be 10 to 50 years after consuming the contaminated meat. It has a long incubation period. You can also contract the prions from blood transfusions, which is why so many UK citizens from that time period still aren't allowed to donate blood. Once the symptoms begin, cognitive impairment, memory loss, hallucinations, etc., you usually die within months. There is no cure or treatment. My grandpa had Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. They think it may have been from him eating squirrel brains and pig brains in his youth. Family was very poor. He died at age 72, and it was a very quick progression. You could see significant decline week to week, and in the later stages, day to day. He was gone within 3 months of showing symptoms. What freaks me out most is that nothing can really kill it. They have to incinerate all medical tools used because bleach doesn't do a thing. And who knows how many people have had it and been buried, exposing the prion to the soil and water. My grandpa was cremated at 3x the normal heat, and we've been told to never take his ashes out of the box. If you have a loved one with this disease, I highly recommend having a brain biopsy done after they have passed. They can tell you if it's sporadic or genetic. Thankfully, my grandpa's case was not genetic. However, I still cannot donate blood. Cleveland Clinic has great resources on the disease. The replication crisis in psychology, though the problem occurs in many other fields, too. Many studies aren't publishing sufficient information by which to conduct a replication study. Many studies play fast and loose with statistical analysis. Many times you're getting obvious cases of p-hacking or hacking, hypothesis after results known, which are both big fucking no-nos for reputable science. The world has 70% less insects on average than it did 40 years ago. We really are coming up on our silent spring. For the people saying there are less pests, those aren't the ones we're worried about. Insect pollinators are vital to so many crops. We could be facing serious problems with certain food supplies soon. In recent years, China has had issues with apple and pear crops to the point where some regions have had to pollinate crops by hand. Also, insects form lower blocks of many food webs, and their disappearance will spell trial F or higher trophic levels. First one, the vast overuse of antibiotics has led to superbugs that are antibiotic resistant. At the same time, the diversity of microbes within the human has drastically decreased in first world countries. This leads to a correlated rise in allergies and gastrointestinal diseases. As we use more antibiotics and antibacterial/viral products, then biodiversity of microbes decrease, and superbugs have a much easier pathway of invading the body. With a very biodiverse microbiome, your resident microbes will try to fight off these infections much easier. We need to focus on helping bacteria, not killing all of it. Edit. Hi. I'm a biology undergraduate BTW, but I do work in a microbiology lab where I do genetic sequencing and study antibiotic production. I'm no expert, but I'm in love with microbiome research. For anyone else curious about the subject, I recommend I Contain Multitudes by Ed Young. It covers the subject in across the animal kingdom and it's actually really fun to read. Known link between untreated hearing loss and cognitive decline, that is dementia. Eater, keyword is untreated. If you previously had normal hearing and it started slipping, please see an entered audiologist. Hearing aids have come down in cost and improved in function/aesthetics even in the last 10 years. If you are a veteran in the US, the VAT will normally cover your hearing aids. If you have had hearing loss since childhood, you're not one of the ones I'm worried about. You have either learned sign language to keep you from being isolated due to your hearing loss, and or you have learned how to use hearing aids/cochlear implants to keep you from being isolated due to your hearing loss. The link is really between communication and cognition, not the physical ability to hear. It's just that in people who previously had normal hearing, if they don't do anything it will impair their communication and in turn affect their cognition. Not a scientist, but I will still take the time to mention something that scares the shit out of me. I only found about a month ago, and I don't think a lot of people are aware of but probably should be. Back in 1946 to 58, the US tested 60 nuclear weapons on the Marshall Islands and buried the nuclear leftover waste and soil in a 30 feet deep cavern, sealing it with a concrete dome. The dome is cracking, and now it's leaking into the ocean, and surprise surprise it's not fixing itself, and the people responsible are essentially ignoring it or saying it is not their problem. Imagine Chernobyl but bigger and in the ocean. The Higgs Boson, which was hypothesized decades ago, was discovered via the Large Hadron Collider. Its real-life discovery proved that it's what gives mass to everything. But there is a non-zero chance that a Higgs boson can drop to a lower energy state. And because of the law of entropy, it's the preferred state to decay to a lower energy state if possible. The influence of a low energy state boson would kick off a chain reaction causing other Higgs bosons to drop to a lower energy state. The problem with this is that if a Higgs boson drops to a lower energy state, then it can't give mass to things anymore, which has universal implications when mass doesn't have mass anymore. It's theorized that the infinitesimal small probability of this occurring could lead to a circumstance where the universe as we know it disappears. Essentially it would occur like an absolute void progressing through the universe, low energy state Higgs bosons infecting any other Higgs boson they come across. Maybe the closest thing to a Thanos snap, but it causes everything to disappear in the universe, but only at the speed of light rather than instantaneously. The fact that you can edit genes from the comfort of your home. The protocols are out there, the literature is too, the materials are easy to obtain. Asia has a lot of unregulated production of anything biochemistry related. It's where I get my phytohormones. This means that a kid with some free time, roughly $5,000 to $10,000 and a heap of motivation, could potentially create something world threatening. It might not work on the first 100 tries, and you can try 100 times within a week, but once it does, there's no stopping it. I know for a fact that not a single country in the world has developed a working protocol for a shutdown or containment. Roughly a year ago I informed someone working in the anti-terror division about this. I told that I modified brewer's yeast by cold shocking it in a suspension with wild type yeast DNA to make some new craft beers, and that anyone could do that. Not just to yeast, but to a whole lot of microorganisms. I was asked to come and give a lecture about this, so that the team would have a clue about how biochemical warfare could potentially be prevented/contained. But I never heard from them again. What's scary is that this is not a discovery. This is out there. This is happening on a large scale to do good, and people justify it because of that. It's being used to clean up oil spills, to produce medicines like insulin, even to capture CO2 from the air and convert it to bioavailable molecules, putting vitamin A in rice. But it takes just one rotten apple to spoil the world. Bill Gates has spoken out about this, and I think more people in the world should. We can't stop this from happening, but we can have the right protocols in place to contain it. As soon as I think about what's needed to contain something like that, and to stop people from fleeing contained sites, well, you've seen the movies. The thing is, where do people go once they are infected? Right, to the hospital, where there's a bunch of people with already weakened immune systems. Where do most antibiotic-resistant bacteria get their resistance? Right, in hospitals, through horizontal gene transfers. A hospital-sized petri dish